Hello, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to Facebook Live as we talk all things of the 50th running of the TCS New York City Marathon. Today, I can't believe it. We are a month away, 4 weeks, however you want to look at it. The time is ticking. It is almost ready to go. We are so close. I am Coach Ben Delaney. Thank you so much for joining us today as we take all of your questions, your shout outs. I want to know where you're listening from. Maybe this is your first marathon. We always want to hear about that. So let us know where you're listening from today or watching us from today. Put those in the chat. Let us know if it's your first marathon. We have a great panel of guests joining us today to answer your training questions. We'll be going over some race strategy, race nutrition, the upcoming taper period that you're going to be experiencing and probably excited to finally get into as you are in that meat part of your training, a couple of long runs left, and you are all good to go. So please drop in those questions. Let us know where you're listening from. Introduce our guest today. We are so happy to have Coach Steve Murrah from the NYRR training team joining us today. We have Jared Ward, Olympic marathoner, and Honey Stinger Hive athlete. Thank you so much, Jared, for joining us today. And we have Tessa Dombi, New Balance Trackster, who we just found out just before we came on the air that she will also be running the TCS New York City Marathon, her first road marathon. She is not doing a couch to marathon plan. She's been training hard, very excited, but she'll be working the expo. But she's going to crush it, have a great day. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Again, we are 4 weeks out. Cannot believe the time is ticking. I remember it was just July, and it seemed like, oh, we have so much time left to do everything. And before we know it, September's here. Now we're in October. Leaves are changing. It feels like a marathon weather out there. So again, we want to talk about what to expect on your race day and your race strategy. So Coach Steve, what do runners need to do to prepare logistically and get ready for race day? I mean, any race day, but maybe even the TCS and New York City Marathon is a unique day in itself.
Yeah, training is almost done. And so coming up to race, you really kind of want to prepare that start and finish line. Those are the two things you haven't really worked on. So, I like to figure out these last long runs. When you get our breakfast going into the race day, your starts around 11, 12 in the afternoon. A lot of our long runs are, start at 7, 8. So how are you going to plan your breakfast? When are you going to eat it? Where are you going to eat it? And then how are you going to stay warm in the start village? It's usually pretty cold, 45 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes colder out there. So make sure you stay warm in start village. So what are you going to wear? Do you have to, old sweatshirts, sweatpants are great, old heat sheets. If you can go to your local thrift store, grab some from there. And then the other thing is the finish line. Plan out early in advance where you're going to find your family and friends. There's 35,000 people out there that are finishing just like you. They're all trying to make a phone call, send a text message. So those might not go through. So plan where you're going to meet your family and friends. Is it at a Starbucks? Is it at a coffee shop, at a Subway, at a hotel? Figure those out before you get to start line to kind of limit any panicking or anxiety before the race.
Yeah, that's great advice, Steve. Because there's a long day. You definitely want to have all those logistics put together because you don't want to, do the race before the race, as we like to talk about it, getting to the start line, all that panic and stress. And you definitely want to have your post-race put together or hit a point all ready to go because you're going to come out of there. You're probably going to be tired, elated, hopefully elated. You may be a bit foggy. It is 26.2 miles. There's nothing easy about that. So have those post-race meetup locations planned out. So you don't have to walk any further than you had to because you've already done 26.2 miles. So try to make that 27th mile hopefully as short as you possibly can. So Jared, I know we were talking before you came on today, and you did a hard workout today. Your coach had you working hard today, and it's important, as you end up here in this part of your training, that you're covering the nutritional part of your training very well. So kind of talk to our runners about, from a nutritional standpoint, as they're finalizing their training, what's maybe some of their nutritional plans will look like, and maybe how we'll go.
Yeah, Ben, I think it's getting enough fuel in right now. So there's a good, better, best, but you want to fuel often and certainly right after workout. So I'm coming in hot from my workout. In fact, if I was to zip this jacket down, you'd still see my tank top under here that I worked out in. And so, I'm hydrating, I'm eating, and I like to get fuel in within 30 minutes of finishing exercise. I like those Honey Stinger cracker bars because they pack some protein and a punch in terms of calories, and then it's fueling with electrolytes through the day. And so, fueling becomes increasingly important as your volume gets up, and sleep. Like sleep is an important part of recovery and nutrition too. And so, these last few weeks, we're we're 4 weeks out. This is heavy training time. You want to stay healthy, you want to stay fueled. This isn't the time to be worrying about, worrying about diets because you want to lose weight. This is the time to help your body recover by getting enough protein, eating and fueling often, and then getting that nutrition in right after these workouts because you want to get to that start line feeling good.
Yeah, and that's so spot on, Jared. I mean, I talked to a lot of our runners, and fueling after the workouts, especially these harder workouts, you've got to get that fuel in. I mean, we were talking before, you're having something to eat because you just got done with your own workout. So it's so important, runners, that you feed that body, because that's the fuel source that you're going to want to have there on race day. So again, if you're doing those hard workouts, as Jared said, 30 minutes, definitely jump in there, get some food, get some electrolytes, fuel that fire again, because you're not quite there yet. You're almost in the in the taper portion of your training, but it's important also to be fueling there. But right now you're still working really hard. Tessa, all of our runners always ask us, from different parts of the, where they're coming from, how they should be looking at their apparel and footwear at this point. Maybe they're coming from Florida to New York, or maybe they're thinking about changing up a new pair of shoes, or what should I wear on race day? Should I try something new? What should runners be focused on, from a footwear and apparel standpoint at this stage of their training?
Yeah, so at this stage of the training, definitely encourage runners to have those race day shoes broken in a little bit. Nothing new on race day is always the motto, and that comes with footwear and apparel. And so we want to make sure we get a dress rehearsal in with the footwear, the socks, and the footwear together. And then try to at least get that apparel in as well. I know we still have a variable. We're a month out. We still don't know exactly what the weather is going to look like. But having some of those key apparel pieces we think we might race in on deck, and if the weather does dip and you can practice wearing that on a run or two just to make sure it's successful, is always great. But if not, you just got to make sure you have something on deck in case weather turns for the worst or for the best.
Yeah, and that's great, because I'm sure we have a couple of big marathons this coming weekend in the major. We have Chicago on Sunday, we have Boston on Monday, and as marathoners, as runners, how many of us have already checked? I'm not even running the races, and I'm checking my phone for the weather, because you're always looking at what may be out there. So great advice, Tessa. Yeah, because you never know what could come up. I cheered some friends on at the 2018 Boston marathon. I stood out there, and man, that rain was coming down, and that wind was howling, and those runners had to make it work. So always prepare yourself, runners. Get yourself in the best position. Plan for the worst, hope for the best, get it done as you're out there. And Steve, let's talk the race strategy a little bit. Obviously Tessa, she touched on that, trying to prepare for things as much as you can. What are some of the tips that we can give to runners at this stage? I mean, they're so close; they probably have a long run left before they hit that taper time. What are some tips we can give as they're preparing, to have a good execution and a successful race?
Yeah, Ben, I would definitely say try to, that last long runs, it's key. So finally practice that, race day nutrition. What are you going to have? When are you going to have it? What do you have for breakfast or dinner the night before? What are you going to eat, during mile 5, 10, whatever, increments you're going to be eating any nutrition. Is it honey stinger or something else? How are you going to take it? Are you going to use water and a Gatorade? So practice all that during your last long run. Make sure it works. Make sure you know how many, gels you need out there. And then what are you going to wear? Now the temperature is finally similar-ish to what it's going to be like on November 7th. So what are you going to wear? Is it that T-shirt and shorts, certain kind of shoes, as Tess talked about? Make sure you're comfortable in what you're wearing, because we don't want anything new out there with nutrition and food. You need to be comfortable in what you're wearing. So this last long run is really key to practicing that one last time. So if something, some shirt does rub you wrong way, this last long run and not on race day.
Yeah, that is so key. I mean, right now you're just trying to do a dress rehearsal for all of your long runs to get ready for race day. Jared, I mean, you're an experienced runner. You've run the Olympics. You're professional running. Any tips you can give out there to our runners? In addition to what Steve said, to kind of like for your own experience, to help runners out, because they're always looking. Our runners are sponges. They're looking for as much information that they can get. So anything you can share with them?
Yeah, well, have fun. And I think, we can talk about the course, we can talk about tapering, we can talk about, nutrition going in and or carb loading, carb cycling going in. But, I think sometimes we get hung up in so much of the minutia that we forget that we've been training for this and excited for this for a long time. So let's make it fun. And think Coach Eystone does a good job of bringing that balance to my life and my training. I'm a stats guy. I'm a research guy, so I'm dialing into how I ought to maximize my carb loading. I'm thinking about maybe even overthinking race weather and during run fueling, and where am I going to tape on my honey stinger gels onto my water bottles, and where am I going to be taking electrolytes and fuel, and Coach Eystone will say, hey Jared, just get really, really fit and you'll be fine. And I think to a certain extent, we just got to remember that we're putting in the time now and we're setting ourselves up for this experience to have fun. So let's keep it fun in the process as we're getting ready. Let's figure out how to keep these long runs fun, and hopefully get us to race day ready to have some fun and take advantage of the beauty that New York is. I mean, I've always felt like the New York Marathon, people ask me why do I keep coming back to New York? Why do I run this marathon? Oh, there's hundreds of marathons in the world. New York to me is the closest you can get to the Olympic experience without being in the Olympics. New York is a cultural and ethnical melting pot, and you get the tour of that going through the 5 boroughs in New York. And I just feel this cultural world kind of coming together experience as we're all out there running the marathon, and then the beautiful tour of New York, running on empty roadways that probably take as long to drive on many days as it does to run the route. And it's just quite an experience. And so I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in the details of what's going on that we forget, hey, we want to do this and this is fun. Let's make it fun.
I think that's so spot on, Jared. And it is so hard sometimes to remember the why, what got us into this. You've been training for a long time. Our runners out there have been doing, 10, 12, 14, 16 weeks. Some started as early as June of this year. So definitely, take that advice, runners. Enjoy the moment. I always encourage our runners as they head over the Verrazano, whether you're on the top level or the lower level, look to your left. You're going to see the lower Manhattan skyline. Take a look. You worked hard to get there. Enjoy that first 5K as you head into Brooklyn. Take it all in, because it really, I think Jared hit on the head. It's a unique experience. So make sure you savor that moment and those time as you go through, because there's a lot of work to be done once you get on the course. So enjoy the moment while you can. Smile, because it's a fantastic day. So really appreciate that. I took the notes down. Hope you, Tessa, you took a few notes down too. I know it's your first road marathon. So Jared gave some good advice there, and so did Steve. I'm taking notes as well, because again, you never know what may be out there on race day for you. So. But we have some amazing shout outs. Again, our runners are always listening to us from all over the world. Runners, thank you so much for chiming in today. Because I'm a California guy, I always like to give a little love to our West Coast. So Jim from El Cerrito, California, thank you so much for listening today. Jeffrey Volcano, always listening from Mouse House down in Orlando, Florida. Again, I'll go from one coast to the other. The Disney tie-in there for sure. Erin, first-time marathoner from Maryland. She did her 21-mile this morning. She is officially in Tapertown. Welcome. It's a good place to be, but we'll talk about that in a little while, as it can be a fun place for a while and then kind of an unsure place as you roll through that. So great job out there. Erin, first-time marathoner as well, listening from Long Island. Sound like she did our 18-mile training run this weekend, and it was intense. Or if maybe she was doing 18 miles, yeah, you're getting up there in the miles. A lot to be done there, a lot to be had. So great job, Erin. Dario from Guadalajara, Mexico. Thank you so much for listening in. Lisa from Indiana, Pennsylvania. Bruno from France. Always love our international connections coming in there. He'll be participating in his 10th marathon in Paris this next week. I didn't know Paris was coming up that soon. That's incredible. He also ran New York 11 years ago. Said it was a great time. We've all run it before. Tessa will have her first time out there, so you'll get to experience that, and love to hear your experience afterward. Kumar, good evening. Thank you so much. And of course, Edgar from Harlem. If it's not a Facebook Live, Edgar is not out there. He's always out there. So Edgar, thank you so much for the love. You are 30 days out there, my friend. So go at it, get at it, recover, have a good old time. We have a few questions coming in. Jared, I'm going to throw this one to you. Runner Fred is asking about the number of honey stinger or other gels. How much should they consume during the race, and when potentially? Again, kind of asking about the calories and carbs per hour, and kind of what they should expect or what they should be looking at for hopefully a successful race.
It's a great question, and it's a little bit individualized. I think, I would say for this, I'm going to give some general advice, and then know that as you become, an experience, as you run more marathons and you experience, what it feels like to run out of carbohydrates towards the end of the race versus the ones that it works out better. Everybody's body's a little different, and it's going to take some experimenting to dial it in, to a science. But I like to say, be getting stuff in at least every 30 minutes, once you get into the race. The marathon's too long to be totally fueled on the start line, ready for the whole distance. A good rule of thumb is that we're burning through 100 calories per hour. Some of us are out there a little bit longer, some of us a little bit more efficient. So it's kind of a rough estimate, and well trained bodies. If you've been getting your long run up there and you've been working on those glycogen stores, you've been fueling right after runs. Your body can maybe store maybe 15, 16, maybe up to 1,800 calories of carbohydrate, so in glycogen stores. And so that's not enough to make it through the marathon. So my approach is, average runner needs to get in, probably at least 600 calories throughout the course of the race. And if I can get in 600, then that's a good day for me. You want to keep your stomach feeling good, and so as I'm fueling, I'm weighing, okay, how does my stomach feel? How's this settling? And so there's a few balances to keep up. You want to get some electrolytes in there, and so whether that's salt tablets or whether you're just you're drinking and fueling with something that has a little bit of electrolytes in it, as well as those sugars there. And there's some good science that, like, even a little splash of protein can kind of help with that carbohydrate absorption. And so working on getting some of this stuff in, and practicing it during the last few long runs, even as we taper, a 12-mile long run or a 10-mile long run, as we get cutting down, still an okay time to practice. Hey, what am I thinking in terms of gels? What am I thinking in terms of fuel? Where am I going to take my honey stinger? It's good to get that in and give yourself that dress rehearsal, even if it's not a full distance long run. And so I'd say practice with it and space it out, and try to get fuel every half an hour. And my goal for the race is to get in 600 calories throughout the race.
No, that's great. I think you touched on it. It is a very individualized thing, and I encourage runners, that we talked with, that these long runs, whether it's your longest long runs or like you have a 10-mile run this weekend, these are the dress rehearsal. This is where you're practicing and you're trying things out. So as Jared had alluded to, runners take that time to try it out. You kind of got to it's a puzzle you're trying to piece together. So dropping those things in there during your training is fantastic. That way you can figure out if you're getting enough fuel, too much fuel, when you want it. But one thing to keep in mind, runners out there on the TCS New York City Marathon course around mile 12 and 18, honey stinger gels will be out there. So again, if you want to carry some stuff, you can grab a few extra, throw them in your pockets or anywhere you can carry those as you go through there. There'll be vanilla, mango orange, strawberry kiwi, which I believe is caffeinated. So again, if you haven't practiced with caffeinated gels during your training, maybe stay away from those. Check them out. And then gold, which is the original honey flavor, will be out there as well. Again, that's mile 12, mile 18. Honey stingers will be out there. So if you are practicing with those, keep that in mind. Maybe you only have a couple on you when you start, and you can just reload as you go. That way you don't have to carry too much fuel during the race, but you have spots on the race where you can grab what you need. Always carry one extra, because you never know if you need one for that final little push. But great information. We have a great question from Victor. Steve, I'm going to toss this one out to you, because we were talking today actually about how you may be running the dash to finish this year. You're contemplating that. So for any of our marathoners that are out there that maybe doing the marathon, they're in for the race, and they're looking at the dash to the finish, how should a marathoner approach the dash to the finish? That 5K that we have.
I will say I did sign up for the dash before this chat, so I am signed up. Hopefully this year I'll be able to run it. I'm just always tired to run it during the expo, and things are going on, so I'm excited. A lot of runners try the dash beforehand. It's a 5K on Saturday. If you're the type of runner that can't hold back in a race, the horn goes off, and you run that race pace and everything, it's not a good race for you. I would hold back, skip it. you don't want to go all out a 5K before the race. If you're someone that though maybe has some friends running it that are slower than you, or you can treat it like a shakeout run, shakeout runs beforehand, loosen up the legs, usually 2 to 5 miles, depending on, who you are. Those are good before the marathon. So if you can treat the 5K like that, a few minutes slower than your race pace, it's a good event. It shakes out the legs, gets you excited, kind of gets you in the New York City Marathon groove. Go for it. But it really depends on, how you are out there when the horn goes off. So it is personal to that runner out there. But I will be there. Hopefully I can make it this year. I'm excited.
You'll be out there, Steve. It's a fantastic day. Anybody who is coming in, approach the 5K. If you're running the marathon, have fun with it. I've done the race a few times. It's a great race. You get to run down 40th. You go by Radio City Music Hall. You go on Central Park South up into the park. You actually finish at the finish line of the marathon for the 5K. But again, don't waste the energy. You've done so much work. Just really use that 5K. It's a great way it's almost like a celebration. Shake it out, have a good time, and then go get off your feet for the rest of Saturday and get ready for Sunday. We had a great question come in from Patricia. If I pronounced that correctly, I'm sorry. Asking about when and where for the drop-off for the bag check. Please stay tuned as we're still working on the location of where that's going to be to check your bag. So keep checking on the website, please. That information will be shared either on the website or via email when that is ready to go, as well as where to pick up your bag in the post-finish after the race. So stay tuned. We don't have all those logistics quite ironed out yet. But so any runners out there who are doing the pre-check bag, stay tuned. More information to come. Tessa, got a fun question from you for someone that we all kind of know her, Connor. I think we all know Connor quite well. He's asking, have you figured out, now that you're running the marathon, what shoe have you chosen to be on the old feet as you march your 26.2 miles through New York?
I am going to take all the help I can get, and I'm going to race in the RC Elite V2, our carbon-plated racing shoe at New Balance, because I'm definitely going to need some help with working Expo the few days beforehand and running around New York City doing some pop-up New Balance events. So I'm really looking forward to getting that shoe underneath my feet. I have a really cool color pack, so I'm going to be feeling my best and looking my best and hopefully racing my best as well. So I'm actually doing my dress rehearsal with my RC Elites this weekend. So first time with those on my feet.
There you go. Hope that run goes well. Because again, runners, you want to make sure you have those any shoes you're wearing should be dialed in at this point. Give them a shot. Find out what feels good, because you want to get to the start line ready to roll, feeling good, and get going out there. This question is to everybody. Tess, I'm actually going to start with you. I think it's a general race question, and then Jared, we'll go to you next. But how do you stay positive when things get intense or things get tough? I mean, a marathon, or even, you can do short distance stuff too, whether it be a 5K or 10K. At some point in those racing, when you're really giving an effort, it's going to get intense, it's going to get dark, you're going to be challenged. What are some of the things, Tessa, that you've done in your racing where you kind of, I don't say push through, but keep things going and maybe keep things positive? What are some tips that you can share?
Yeah, I think my first thing is always to have a mantra or a theme. I've kind of always found a theme throughout my training cycles, and that goes all the way back to high school to now, to present day. We were just talking about having the mantra for this race be channel your inner Meb, because that guy is so positive. So, and that's super true. It's something really cheeky, but it's going to bring a smile to your face when you're having that dark period. Also, I found that having fuel actually recently in my long runs, breaking up the run, whether it's fuel, mile markers, seeing certain people on the course, looking for specific landmarks, helping to mentally break up the course because it's a long time is also really great, because it gives you something to look forward to every few miles and keep your mind busy. And also just, again, kind of piggybacking on what was already said with Jared was like, remember to be in the moment, remember to be happy. You've trained so hard for this. So it's constant little reminders like that to enjoy the moment and take it in.
Jared, do you have anything else to add to that? I mean, some great advice from Tessa, but I'm sure in your career, you've had moments where you're just kind of like, okay, this is going to be a grind. And, what have you done to keep that, the positive thoughts going in those moments?
Well, Ben, Tessa's advice was spot on. And so if we cut it there, I think we can talk about some great advice. We talked a little bit about Meb. I think I'll add a line from Ryan Hall. He titled his book "Run the Mile You're In," and I think there's a lot of power in that idea. if the marathon ended at mile 19, I don't think there'd be a wall at mile 18. And something about the wall is this, I think is embedded in this mental lapse that happens when we're tired. We're probably running out of glycogen. We've been focusing for a long time. And we have this moment where, and all of us do it, it happens to everybody in the race. There's often this moment where you say, oh no, there's 10 miles left, or there's 8 miles left. And something switches mentally because that seems like too much to ask. But if the race ended in a mile, we'd be fine. And so I think there's a lot of power in having a mantra like Tessa says to get you through that hard spot that you know is coming, but then just keeping in the back of your head, I don't have to run all 8 or 10 or 12 of those miles at once. I just got to run them one at a time. And so run the mile you're in.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, again, I think keeping things simple is, kind of what you take away, and having fun. Like, smile. I mean, I had a person I used to run and coach with, and they said, smile. It'll make it feel better. I mean, it's a great way to look at it because, when you smile, you feel positive. So I think it's some great information. Tessa, Jared, thank you so much for that. Again, we've talked so much about race strategy, race planning. A lot of our runners are doing, maybe their long run is over, maybe they're done with all the hard work. We all get to that point in our training where we're like, the work is done. I'm finally in taper. But not all runners know what taper is or what they're supposed to do in taper or what's going to happen in this point, because so many things can happen. You go through a range of emotions sometimes when you enter this point of your training, whether it's a 2-week or a 3-week. So Steve, explain what a taper is and why it's so important that runners in this time frame, what physiology is going to be happening to their bodies as they sit through this, and what they can hopefully get out of it so they get to race day, what the outcome will be.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to explain it is kind of you're resting your body. It's kind of when you peaked in your training. So usually the peak happens between 2 to 4 weeks out. I think we just had someone earlier in the chat. They did the last 21, 22 milers earlier. Some people do it. The last long run doesn't matter distance. 2 weeks out. I think on average it's about 3 weeks out from your marathon. So you peaked in your mileage, and then you usually just going to recover for about 3 weeks. It's a good time to catch up on the sleep. You're bringing the mileage down per week. Your intensity will usually stay about the same, so you're still doing a little speed work, but the mileage is really going to drop. It's also a good time. Any discomforts you have, minor injuries, minor injuries you may have, it's a good time to rest those as well. The goal is to end up at the start line 100% healthy. So you're either trying to stay healthy those last 3 weeks or getting as healthy as you can those last 3 weeks.
No, and that's great information, because you want to be, get to the start line ready to run, ready to race. You work so hard to get there. Jared, what should runners expect? How should they expect to feel during this taper period? I think we've all had the feels. You kind of go up and down, left and right. You never know what's happening. The first week you feel great because you're finally able to come off a little bit. Maybe week 2 things change. Week 3 get a little antsy. So what should the runners expect to feel? Maybe some of the experiences that you've had in your pro career as well.
Well, you feel certainly in first marathon training cycles, you taper. It's more than you've tapered for any other race probably in your life. Certainly if you've just been running shorter races, and you start to feel a little lethargic towards the end, and that's okay. And frankly, as you get carb loaded into the race going into race week, you're going to gain a little bit of weight. Those carbs, that glycogen you're storing for energy, stores with water. And so you'll pick up 2 to 3 pounds, but that's a good thing, and it's good water to have. That's hyperhydration right there. As you burn those carbohydrates, that water becomes accessible, and it's almost like you're drinking water through the race as you're burning those carbohydrates. And so it's a great thing. So I would say you're going to feel a little lethargic. You're going to gain a little bit of weight coming into race week, and that's all okay. And I think it's kind of fun to watch your resting heart rate go down, right? You've been training hard and hard and hard, and then you start cutting back, and all of a sudden that middle of the night or resting heart rate is going to creep down and creep down. And every time you see that tick down, think, hey, I'm just getting one step more rested, ready for race day.
And one step is so good. Yeah, it's all about the rest, runners. Your taper period should just be about dialing back, enjoying it. everyone begins to get, you tend to get a bit, the nerves set in. You have to question some things. You're not sure if you did this right, you did that right. Maybe that one run I missed back in August, is that going to impact me on race day? It's all those things can kind of play with your mind. But Tessa, what are some of the do's and don'ts that we want to, stress to our runners as they approach race day and in their taper period, so that they can kind of have maybe a roadmap to help them out a bit?
Yeah, so I kind of like to use the quote I feel like many coaches have used in the past, is the hay's already in the barn. You're gonna burn it down on race day, because all the hard work's already done. And don't try to shove an extra long run in during your taper period, or do something out of the norm like take up weightlifting or anything crazy. You really just want to kind of start to tailor back and stay within your normal range. Don't binge eat or overconsume or do something over the top. Everything needs to be pulled back into moderation. So just being mindful, and like kind of piggybacking onto what Jared already said, he really talked to the science of carb loading and getting ready for race day, and kind of what to expect, what you're going to be feeling. You're going to have some extra energy, and then you're going to kind of be hanging out for a while, and you're going to have a lot of free time. So catch up on all the Netflix, enjoy this moment, because race day is right around the corner. So just try to keep your nerves calm.
I remember that's a great point, Tess. It's so true. You have time finally. Those weekends you had to carve out, all that time for the long run, and then you come home and all you want to do is just lay down and stare at the ceiling. But as Jared said earlier, you don't lay down. You want to get the fuel in, and he did a hard workout. You want to get that in. Now you have a bit more free time. So yeah, catching up on your podcast, maybe your watch list on Netflix or any of your streaming services you have has maybe gotten a bit deep in the library. Well, now you got some free time, so definitely catch up on all of those things. But man, our runners out there, we have questions, we have more shout outs rolling in. So let's jump back in here to all of our runners. We have a bunch of shout outs. We have Elliot from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Go Pat, go. She's running Chicago this weekend, and he can't wait for New York City. So he'll have a marathon. He'll basically recover back to New York. Got the time there, my friend. So be safe. Good luck in Chicago. Weather's looking a little warm, so as Jared told earlier, hydrate, have fun, get it going. Fred Meyerson, his first New York was in 1983. That's when he lived there. He's running it again this year. That's incredible. He did 2:42 in 1983. Fred, you're a speedster. You're a legend. So amazing job out there. Roger from Chicago will be doing his first New York City marathon this year. He's done Chicago in 2007, 2016, and 2017. Roger, welcome to New York. Hopefully the New York City Marathon is as exciting as you've done Chicago in the past. Great. Thank you so much for listening. We have Ramon from the Netherlands, first marathon out there. Hope you can get in there. I know we're looking for information on the travel, so keep your eyes on that. Be great to come on in. We have Moy from Tel Aviv, be the 5th marathon out there. Hopefully I get this pronunciation of this name correct. We have Yasiel, started to run their first New York City marathon. James in Staten Island, his 15th. That's incredible. John will be doing his second marathon. First was in 2015. And we have Jamie from Madrid, Spain, second New York City marathon coming up in a couple of weeks. Incredible runners. Thank you so much for all the shout outs. And then we have one other runner coming in from White Plains. We have Sheppy from White Plains, first time running in New York City. He's got 20 miles up next weekend. So rest up, try to use that 20 miler as a good dress rehearsal for what your race is going to look like. Maybe the clothes you're going to wear, the shoes you want to wear, have that fuel ready to go, and have a great 20-mile run. This is an interesting one. And Steve, I'll throw this one out to you from Lisa. She's in rural Illinois. Any advice on running 2 marathons in 4 weeks? This is one of our runners, and I'm sure there's a lot of runners who are doing Chicago, and maybe Boston runners out there as well. And then 4 weeks later, we'll see them on Staten Island. Any advice for those runners out there to, properly have a good run in Chicago, maybe get rest up, and what they can maybe expect in New York?
Ben, you kind of said it right there. I would recommend making one of those races your goal race, and the other one, celebration or a long run tune-up. So let's just hypothetically say Chicago is going to be your goal race in this situation. Treat that as, your A effort. You're going to go out there and try to race it hard. So whether that's a PR or your first one, race it kind of hard. And then New York, celebration. Celebrate what you did in Chicago. Toss the watch aside. Don't worry about your pace and enjoy it, because there's not enough time to rest and train in between those two. Or if you want to flip it around, you could do Chicago as your last long run for New York City. So you're going to slow it down into long run pace, maybe even slower because you're going very far, and then rest up for a strong A effort for New York City. So pick one of those. You can do it. A lot of people do back-to-back marathons. There's the Marathon Maniac Club, but those people aren't doing all-out races every single weekend. They're usually treating them celebration, recovery, long run type people. So definitely excited to see how your results are for both those races, though.
Go get it. Have a great race out there. Runner Amy out there had a question about on the course where Honey Singer will be at mile 12 and 18. She asked if there'll be gummies in addition to gels. There will only be gels. So if again, runners who will use the Honey Singer gummies out there will have to carry your own. If you use gels, you'll have mile 12 and mile 18. You'll have some additional time to grab those. So please plan accordingly, runners out there. Vicky out there is asking about when will the specific start times and the corrals be posted up on the website. I think that's coming in the next week or so, around the mid-October. So keep checking the website out. I'm sure a lot of people out there are hitting that refresh Command R on their keyboards, looking for information or waiting for those emails to come in. So Vicky, I know everyone's trying to get in the information there, so just keep checking that out. Allison was asking about the tracking app and when the bibs numbers will be available. The app looks like will be available for next week. I think the bibs are still going through. So again, things are coming down the pipe. We're 4 weeks out, so I'm sure you'll be getting a lot of information through via email and different channels out there on the next week to 10 days. So runners, we thank you for your patience as we get to everything put together. But all the information will be coming to you. Just keep your eyes out there and ears open for all of that information. Got a great question from Yaisil. She has two of them actually. So Tessa, we'll start with you on this one. Any advice on calming the nerves and maybe getting a good night's sleep prior to the race? I mean, again, most people have a hard time on the night before. They're nervous. Any tips or tricks to kind of try to get a good night's sleep that night before the race?
Yeah, it's always a tricky one. You're in a whole new environment. You're not sleeping in your own bed. You're in a city. So I think the first suggestion would probably be to bring earplugs. I found this out when I went to New York to help support my brother run his marathon a few years ago. The city noises are quite loud, and most of us live not in the city. So bringing something to cancel out some of that noise might be the first step to helping you out. Also, I don't know if you've ever had melatonin or something like that, or something to help aid with your sleep. It's always a great suggestion if you commonly use it. That's always something to keep handy. But it's also just trying to maybe practice some breathing and meditating. It's always going to be exciting. I think we can't lie to ourselves and say we're going to get the most amazing night's rest the night before race day, because we are all very excited. But just going in and trying our best to get the best rest possible is really helpful.
Yeah, it's so true. If you're not used to the environment here in New York, it can be a lot of energy here. I mean, you've worked hard. I mean, you're going to be excited. So, maybe a couple days before, that's where those key nights of sleep are be. And just the night before kind of is what it is. Just try to get some rest in there. Some great tips from Tess. The melatonin, the earplugs, something to kind of calm everything down. Or as we talked earlier, just channel your inner Meb, have that Zen moment. And the follow-up question that this runner had, and Jared, I'll toss this one out to you, is about some energy management as they approach. As you come through the Bronx, you hit 20, 21, and then 22 as you exit out back into Manhattan. As runners come through there, how can runners manage the energy a little bit and get in a good mindset to kind of tackle those last 4 or 5 miles?
That is such a tough spot in the marathon, and in this marathon especially. You come off the energy of First Avenue. It's loud. It's feels like a scream tunnel for a couple of miles, and then you peak up. You cross a couple bridges. There's a lot of turns up there, and then all of a sudden you're headed back on Fifth Avenue towards Central Park, and that area where the energy that you felt on First Avenue fades a little bit. You're tired. It's the common wall area. You got some bridges. You got a lot of turns. It's an easy place to get complacent. And so I always think, kind of like Tessa was talking about with a power statement. The dark, hard places are coming. And in New York, even especially, about right where it's going to come probably. And so find a power statement that's going to get you through that portion of the race, or maybe it's a physical cue. Find something that you're going to see that's going to get you excited? When you first see Central Park, what is that going to cue in your mind? When you first turn into Central Park, what is that going to do for you? And when you're running the Boston Marathon, it's like when you see the Cisco sign, what is that going to do for you? When you're running Chicago, when you turn back onto the straightaway and you're coming home, 2.5 miles out, what is that? So find a physical cue. I like physical cues in the race. It can line up with your power statement, but it's all about planning for the phase of the race that is coming. That's going to be hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually a really good follow-up question. Steve, I'll toss this one out to you. Dennis is asking, it looks like they're going for that sub-4, and that's one of the numbers, that our runners really like to go for. He's asking, how should he use the words attack? We'll talk about that in a second. How should he attack the first half of the race, or maybe approach the first part of the race?
Yeah, Dennis, is really the question, a big goal. I'm not sure you're training, so I'm assuming you've been training for that time for a while. That's step one. Make sure, you can hit that 9:09 on average, during some of your training. But I would look into our NYRR pace team. It's going to really help you out. They're going to be the men and women out there that'll be in the crowd before the race, and you can use them kind of to do the pacing for you. We'll have a few 4 hours out there, so they're going to be in various crowds. Our charts will be online later this month, and what start crowd they'll be in. But the game of follow a leader. So just follow that sign and finish line. And just like them, if you can't find the pace on race day or the non-corral, you're going to, start slower. So your first mile, especially if Arizona Bridge, is not going to be that 9:09, most like a little bit slower. The course is hilly, like we said earlier. So it's going to, maybe it's a 9:30, 9:40 first mile, then it's an 8:30 second mile because you're down the hill. 4th Avenue can get really crowded. And so you're going to kind of bounce around that pace, but on average, you're going to hit that 9:09, but it is starting off slow. So I would hold back on the word attack, like Ben mentioned. Approaching the race is proper and approach it smart. And watching nutrition. Jared mentioned earlier kind of when to take that nutrition and make sure your nutrition's on par. What we don't want to happen is later in the miles, you hit the wall too early, and a lot of it goes down in your nutrition. So you want to keep that gas tank full. That's going to help you hit that goal time of sub-4.
Yeah, and great shout out for our pace team. Our pace team is phenomenal. I've used them for the New York City Marathon in the past. They do a phenomenal job. They hit their marks. They know what they're doing. So again, if you have those goals in mind, as Steve said, follow the leader. They take all the guesswork out. All you have to do is literally just stay on them. You don't have to be right next to them. As long as you're within, half a block, you're fine. Because again, some pacers are going to be a big, mounds of people around them. So don't feel you have to force your way up to be on their shoulder. Relax, take it in. And we've kind of touched on that a lot today. Smile, take in the view, relax, back off a little bit. You're going to be good. That pace team will definitely help get you there. Jared, you touched on it before. You run the TCS New York City Marathon before. How tough? I think that all of our runners ask about the bridges. We have 5 bridges that they have to run over. How tough are the bridges? I think people hear about that and they think they're like these monstrous hills, but how tough are the bridges in the TCS New York City Marathon course?
It's not terrible. If you were to get out there on a training run and run over these bridges, you're going to think, oh, that's okay. The Arizona Bridge is the biggest one, but it's right at the start. So you feel fine as you're creeping up it. And then you get to fly down the other side. I think it's the positioning of the bridges that become tough. You cross that Queensboro Bridge around mile 15. That's a tough position in the race to be climbing up a bridge. You have those, few bridges even later, later in the race, as we're kind of in the northernmost portion of the race before we come back down towards Central Park. And so it's where the bridges are. And I think, just like Steve was saying, you might be a little slower going up a bridge, and then you might be a little faster going down. And so as we take into account the elevation in the race, just know not to panic when you look at your watch and see a split that maybe was faster than you expected or slower than you expected, because these bridges affect that. And I would say just be patient. Pacing's going to average out. When I analyzed back in college, before I'd even run my first marathon, looking a lot of pacing profiles and trying to figure out optimal ways to pace the marathon, one thing that I recognize that the Boston qualifiers of the world did really well was they ran the terrain well. So when you're going up a bridge, it's okay to slow down. Think of equal effort. Okay. And then when you're coming down the other side, it's okay to speed up a little bit. Now, we don't want to fly down the other side. There's some muscle, eccentric loading, tissue damage if you're sprinting down the bridge, but expect it to be a little faster. And that's okay. That's something that our runners hitting Boston qualifying marks or that our elite runners are doing a little bit better. And so just be aware of that through the race and let it ebb and flow with that equal effort kind of mentality, equal effort on the bridges.
Yeah, perfect. Again, I mean, that's exactly how you should approach the bridges. I mean, that's a great idea. Because yeah, again, if you go up too hard, you're burning the energy too early. Just sit back, relax. Again, if you go over the Queensboro, you'll be coming over, you'll be on the south side of the bridge, look into Midtown Manhattan, you'll see the Empire State, the Chrysler Building, they'll all be right there. Take a look, enjoy it. You've worked hard to get there, take in the sights, and you'll all the sounds. Because again, when you go over the bridge, there'll be no spectators. Yeah, Steve.
Ben, I think it's important to call out, we're talking about bridges and the hills in the course, but we can't miss the hardest hill, which I think is in the course, that Fifth Avenue coming back into Manhattan on Central Park, 110th Street. It's not a bridge, so you don't notice it, but it's one that sneaks up on you. And once again, as Jared said, if you went on a 10-mile shakeout run, you'd say, that was nothing. But on where it is in the course, because you're like, I'm in Central Park, but it's the hardest, I think the hardest hill, even though the elevation is so small for the other ones, that you're going to feel it. And so when I ran my first marathon in 2010, my confidence dropped because I was going slower. I didn't know that was a hill. But then you realize later on it is a hill. So keep in mind that last little hill on Fifth Avenue, sorry, 110th to 90th Street is a hill. And you're going to slow down going up the hill, and then you'll speed up on Cat Hill. Yeah, it's long. Yeah, it's like 20 blocks.
1 mile long.
But you have Cat Hill to go down.
Don't tell me this.
Well,
that's just freaking out going, what's going on? Why am I doing this?
Well, you get into Central Park and there's more hills too, right? You're going up, you're going down. And I think, use those to your advantage too. Think, okay, crest a hill. Now get a little excited, get some of that rhythm back on the downhill. The nice thing about New York is when you got an uphill, you get the paired downhill. And so as you're fighting through that uphill, just wait on that downhill to take advantage of getting, especially late in the race, let that downhill help you get your rhythm back.
No, I think that's great because in Central Park you have a couple really nice downhills within the park, and if you have done everything correctly, as Jared said, you'll be able just to kind of cruise in. You'll be flying in. You'll be feeling good. Yeah, you're in mile 24, mile 25, so you won't feel like the first part of the race. But yeah, take it all in, enjoy it. Tessa, this one's for you. One of our runners, they did their 20. They just did their 20-mile long run. Again, everyone's trainees kind of have to, our lives are not perfect. We can't, judge everything we have to do, and they're going to be on vacation all next week. Is it too early to start tapering? I mean, you usually hear tapers are like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Is 4 weeks okay? Is that too early? Should there be any panic or stress there?
I don't believe that there should be any panic or stress there, especially if you're training with a coach and you've talked with your coach or your partner. Based on the program you're going, you've clearly researched it and put all the time in, but you've already done all the training and the hard work. If you have to taper a little bit early, take advantage of that, enjoy it. Maybe take notes for next year if that worked for you, or if you might be better with tapering a little bit later. But it's getting to know your body and feel comfortable. And as long as you stay stuck with your plan and you've formulated your plan, all the hard work's already been done.
Absolutely. That's perfect. Yeah, you've done the work. You're going to be good on a race day. I'll go through a couple of these quick. We have some logistical questions coming in, so I'll work through these. Susan's asking about for the bib pickup. Runners out there, you are allowed to bring one additional guest with you to the expo. You can't bring the whole family. Unfortunately, obviously, these are different times. So for safety and security, one guest is allowed to bring in. Please make sure you go through the expo after you grab your bib, hit the New Balance shop. We'll have all the good swag to wear after the race. You don't want to buy those shoes on Friday, wear them on Sunday, but definitely pick up some of the New Balance swag that's in there because they have some fantastic gear. So one guest is allowed to come in with you for the expo, Susan, so keep that in mind. Florian's asking how the pre-marathon festivities will look like in previous years. Again, with the different times that we are in, there will be some differences. Steve, you can actually help me out. Are we doing the Parade of Nations? I think it's a par down Parade of Nations, but will there be a small one?
Not. I think it's par down a lot or not a lot. I'm not sure. I'll check NYRR.org to be sure about that.
Yeah.
One.
Yeah, there's some information. It'd be pretty much all the festivities that we usually have for runners out there who have done our races in the past. Again, a lot of things are scaled down this year, again, for safety and the security of everyone out there. We want to have a great race. So keep an eye out on the website. If you have any questions in particular, you can always shoot an email to help@nyrr.org if you can't find the exact answer you're looking for, as our runner services team will help you with that information out there. Susan's asking about the cutoff time for the New York City Marathon. It is 7:30 p.m. So again, runners who are maybe in the later waves, or 11 or 12 o'clock waves, don't worry. We're not going to roll up the streets on you at any point. You have plenty of time to get in your race in there today on Sunday, November 7th. So don't worry about that. Yeah, but I will toss this question to Steve. Obviously we have runners that may be coming in a little bit late. What advice do you have for the runners who maybe are in that 12 o'clock start? Be finishing in the dark? That can be a struggle sometimes. What are what's some advice you can give those runners to keep the energy going, maybe as the day wears on a bit more?
Yeah, two things, Ben. I'd say first one is kind of just remember it's motivation is what we're asking for here. You're by yourself in the dark, and remember why you signed up for the marathon. A lot of people do this race for a charity, so you're out there running for many different people, a big charity organization that you care for deeply. And just think about all that while you run those last few miles. Once again, whether you're finishing at 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. A lot of people sign up for marathons to beat a time or on a dare. So, why did you sign up for the race is important, and that can help fuel you to that finish line. And if you are coming in and it's dark, 7:30, 8 o'clock, we do have tons and tons of staff and volunteer, which we celebrate the final finishers across the finish line. A lot of athletes come out too. And so you're not going to be alone at the finish line. No matter what time you finish, we're going to be announcing your name, announcing your finish, and celebrating you. And so if you're going through, the hard hills, like I mentioned, Fifth Avenue, 110th Street, and it's dark, you're by yourself, the water stations are closing down, whatever it may be, know that there are people waiting for you to cross that finish line and going to cheer your name as you cross that line. So that can help you kind of motivate yourself across that finish line.
Yeah, and that's great. And then on the flip side, Jared, we have Jennifer. Runner Jennifer's asking a great question. Because again, New York, we talked about in the early part of our call about the logistics. It is a long day for those runners maybe coming to their first TCS New York City Marathon. We have to get all the runners over to Staten Island, get them all staged, and get them back across to Verrazano. So it's a longer day for some runners out there. How should runners maybe approach, those hours before the race? Some runners could be out there on Staten Island for a while, or maybe you're up earlier, and maybe you're not running at the time that you're used to going. So what are some of the things they can go? Should they look for a normal breakfast? We talk about a second breakfast sometimes, depending on when your wave is. What are some tips and tricks you can give the runners out there, Jared?
Yeah, I get a little bit spoiled in my treatment, but I'm out on that start line early too. My bus leaves at 5:30 a.m. and so I'm getting up, I'm having some breakfast in the morning, but I'm packing my snack with me. And I like to have a honey stinger waffle about 90 minutes before the start line, because that helps my stomach feel a little bit better. If my stomach gets too empty, that contributes to nerves. And so, I think have breakfast and then snacks, and those are some of the best foods anyways. Who doesn't like the waffles, the granola bars, that kind of stuff? That's good runner eating. That's comfort food for a runner. And so pack some comfort food, and maybe it's gummies, right? I keep the honey stinger gummies in my backpack too, and sometimes I'll pop a couple of those. And so just some good healthy light snacking. Keep those carbs, keep topping off those carb stores, and I think that helps. And then try to relax. The marathon's a long ways. I don't think any of us need to be amped up on the start line. Get a plan for how that power statement's going to get you through the tough miles, how we're going to get competitive towards the end, how we're going to be motivated to chase our goals. But at the start, let's just try to bring it back down to earth. I worked with a sports psychologist at BYU named Craig Manning, and he would always say, Jared, fear and anxiety live in the future. He'd also say regret and remorse, and I would say even maybe a little bit depression, live in the past. So if you're feeling those emotions, make that a cue to get back to the present. So you're in the morning of the race, you're thinking, oh man, I should have worked out harder, should have done more miles. I'm not as prepared for this as I thought I was going to be. Shunk. back to the present. Okay, what am I doing right now? What am I fueling on right now? Do I have the stuff that I need? Am I sitting down off my feet? Can I relax? Am I breathing? Am I smelling? Back to the present. Same thing goes for the future. You start to get those butterflies, and I get those butterflies too, an hour before the start line. It's get back to the present. Okay, make sure I got my shoes tied on tight. Make sure I got my fuel packed where I need it. Make sure that I know when I need to be to the start line. Anything to get you back to the present. Use your senses and keep ourselves in the moment, I think helps get through those long mornings pre-race.
No, that's great. And I think we had a question from runner Edwin asking about, staying mentally sharp or focused during the taper. And I think, as Jared, I think staying in the present, I think in general, whether it's on race day, the last 2 weeks, whatever you're doing, really kind of covers a wider piece there. So I think that's a fantastic. So runners, that was some great advice. Make sure you listen to, if you're, after we're done here, it's uploaded, go back. I would listen to that again. I'm going to listen to that again, Jared, because that was really some great information on, where to be, and it helps keep you kind of grounded a little bit, because it is you've done a lot of work. It's a fantastic day, but take it all in, enjoy it, but definitely you want to live in the moment there. Tessa, this one is for you. Again, no training plan ever goes perfect, and the last thing we want to do is get this close and all of a sudden have an issue maybe with our shoes or our socks. Runner Dennis out there has gotten a couple of blisters. He's been doing the same training in the same socks and shoes. Any idea on what may be causing this? Treatment, pre-treatment? What are some tips out there for runners who may be, in this point, and now they're maybe questioning if they're wearing the right apparel on their feet at this point?
Yeah, it's a little scary. I'm sorry you're going through blisters. Those are never fun to have on your feet right now, especially in this time. Thankfully, we're still far enough out that you can get those bad boys under control and then get back to normal. I think the first thing we have to remind ourselves is that the seasons are changing. We're headed into fall, so weather's changing. We're sweating differently. We're wearing our shoes differently. But also looking at footwear, depending where they're at, it could be rubbing. It could be something has happened with our form. So try to check it with yourself. See if you're running a little bit differently. Are you, changing up your form because you have a little ache and pain because we're at that peak moment of training? So a lot of miles are adding up on our feet. So we might be feeling a little bit more than normal. You can find comfort that we're going to start tapering soon, or you've already started your taper, and that hopefully some miles off of the feet will allow your feet the time to heal. Of course, the internet's a great place to get some solutions, or going to your local run specialty store and having somebody with a lot of experience look at your feet, or doing the research yourself to kind of figure out some other solutions, and problem solving is always a great place to go to as well. I think it's really proactive of you to be asking in this forum, how do I address this? Because it's top of mind and you want to get on top of it as soon as possible so that you can find a solution and get your feet back in shape for race day. So I definitely encourage you and empower you to go look at those options and avenues to hopefully find a solution. But it can be a combination of a bunch of things. So definitely seeing a specialist, or trying to do a little online sleuthing, figuring out a little here and there might be helpful until you get those miles off your feet.
Yeah, I mean, I had a blister just a couple of weeks ago after a long run. I haven't had a blister in years, and I was like, "What happened? Where did this come from?" And it just happened. I did some quick I took care of it, and within a few days, it was all wrapped up and ready to go. But Tessa had a great follow-up question on this one, and the question that we have a lot of people are asking is there an ideal mileage that I should have on my shoes when I get to race day?
Yeah, for an ideal mileage, I prefer to keep my shoes fresh. So maybe put a few runs on them and then having them tucked aside until race day. Just so you feel confident in them and they're worn into that nice little sweet spot I like to consider. So probably like 50 miles or so, just a few runs. But you want to have them feeling fresh. So keeping them new, keeping them shiny and clean, hopefully too, as well, is always a fun feature. But yeah, trying to keep your shoes new as possible with just a little familiarity. Nothing new on race day. Again, I feel like I repeat myself every time, but it's really important. And definitely take them for a spin, but then keep them to the side until race day.
Absolutely spot on. So this has been a fantastic show. Questions coming in left and right. Great information. Jared, any final parting words I know you're getting ready for the TCS New York City Marathon. You're probably, going to keep fueling up after your hard work out today, but any, advice out there for our runners as they enter maybe the last little bit of their training, getting ready for taper time?
I just say less is more. I remember talking with Meb once. We talked about Meb a few times, channeling your inner Meb. Meb once gave me the advice. I think it was 2 weeks out from a marathon. He said, Jared, nothing you can do from now to your marathon's going to help it. Lots you can do to mess it up. So, think less is more, right? When you're waffling between, hey, should I go out for another run? Should I rest? Should I add one more mile to this run, or should I just keep it at what coach said? Like, err on the side from this point on in, or maybe from next week on in. I like to, 2.5 weeks out is when I really consider my taper starting. Err on the side of maybe a little bit less. And it doesn't mean stop working hard. It doesn't mean stop dialing in. Like, we just focus on different things. We focus on good, clean fuel right after our workouts. We focus on rest. I was telling my wife, I have a goal to get X number of naps every week. And sometimes I can only afford a 10 or 12 minute power nap, but I'm going to get that nap in. And so, set your goals a little bit differently to rest as opposed to more. Think less is more.
Get that nap in. That's going to be my phrase for the rest of the day, Jared. Everybody could use a nap. I mean, naps are the best. Exactly. Get that nap in, my friend. You worked hard to every bed. Who doesn't love a nap? Let's be realistic. That's the great thing about just you had a good run. You just plop down and close your eyes for a minute and just kind of let it all kind of calm down a bit. Steve, any tips and tricks for our runners who are coming to the expo, maybe looking for some last minute advice? We do have our app that's going to be coming out very soon so that their loved ones can track them, but the runners are always asking, who can I talk to for some last minute advice? Where can I go to? What at the expo do we have for our runners that is here they can come by and get some, last minute tips or any kind of advice on pacing or race strategy?
Yeah, the expo guys, we don't mail bibs. You can't have someone pick up your bib for you. So you need to go to the expo yourself on that Thursday, Friday, Saturday to get your race bib. And while you're there, as Ben said, you can stop by our Pacer booth. We're going to have pace bands for you from about 2:30 finish time all the way to 6 hours. So you can track yourself along the course. And then we'll have our pace team as well. So if you're looking, we have, some questions about the Pacers. You can talk to a few pace team leaders over there about how they're going to what the strategy for this race is, where they're going to be on race day. So you can find out if that 4-hour pacer from earlier we talked about is in your corral. And then we'll have some of our NYRR coaching staff there as well. So they'll be there to answer any last minute questions, whether it's, race strategy, hopefully not apparel, but they'll be there as well to answer all of your last minute questions and any issues you have. And we'll also, of course, have our runner services. So if you have issues about transportation, baggage, how to get to the start, they'll be there as well to answer your final questions leading up to your race.
And Tessa, will you be at the expo as well? Are you working before your long race?
Yes, I will. So stop by.
Oh, nothing like additional time on your feet before you get to run 26.2 miles.
Yes, I'm not taking my own advice, so I'm sorry. But please
Hey,
stop
that's how
by.
it goes
We're gonna
sometimes.
have really cool gear.
Yeah, please do, runners. Make sure you get through the bib, get in there, check out the New Balance shop. It's got always has some great apparel. Tessa, Jared, Steve, thank you so much for joining today. Runners, thank you for joining. Again, lots of questions out there. You're almost there, runners. We talked about the hay's almost in the barn. You probably need that last little bit here. Be calm, stay in them, keep it very simple as we go through. But you're almost home, runners. We will see you very soon. Come by the expo, grab your stuff. If not, we'll see you on November 7th, and have a great day.